My girlfriend pretended to love me, but she was a gold digger all along. Hey Reddit, I'm Ethan, 34, and I've been through something recently that's really messed with my head. I thought I had found the love of my life in my girlfriend, Amanda, 30. We'd been together for nearly 2 years, and everything seemed perfect. She was beautiful, fun, and seemed to genuinely care about me, or so I thought. It turns out Amanda had been using me for my money the entire time. She played me like a fool, pretending to love me while draining me financially. Here's the story of how I found out my girlfriend was a gold digger and how I finally woke up to the truth. Before I realized Amanda was only with me for my money, I was completely smitten with her. From the day we met, I thought she was the most amazing woman I'd ever met. We crossed paths at a friend's party, and it felt like something out of a rom-com. She walked in wearing this stunning red dress, her hair cascading down her shoulders, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. The spark, our first meeting. I remember that night like it happened yesterday. It was one of those big social gatherings where I wasn't expecting much. Nate, my best friend since college, had dragged me out of my apartment after weeks of pestering. "You can't keep hiding in your work, man," he had said, shaking his head. "Get out, meet some new people. You never know who you'll meet." I reluctantly agreed, not expecting anything significant. The party was loud, with music blasting and drinks flowing. People were milling around, chatting in tight circles, and I was already regretting my decision as I grabbed a beer from the bar. That's when I saw her. Amanda. She was surrounded by a group of people, talking animatedly, her laughter cutting through the noise like a melody. There was something magnetic about her presence. Everyone seemed drawn to her, captivated by the way she commanded attention without even trying. She wore a red dress that hugged her curves in all the right places, her long brown hair falling effortlessly over her shoulders. But it wasn't just her looks, it was her confidence that pulled me in. Nate nudged me as he followed my gaze. "You should go talk to her, man," he said with a grin. "She's totally your type." "I don't know," I said, feeling that familiar nervous knot forming in my stomach. "She's way out of my league." Nate shook his head. "Come on, Ethan. You're a successful guy. What's the worst that could happen?" Against my better judgment, I decided to approach her. With every step I took toward her, my heart pounded louder in my chest. When I finally made it over to where she was standing, I introduced myself, trying to sound as confident as possible despite my nerves. "Hi, I'm Ethan," I said, extending my hand with what I hoped was a casual smile. She turned her head and met my eyes with an amused smile. "Amanda," she said smoothly, shaking my hand. "Nice to meet you." From that moment, I was hooked. We spent the rest of the evening talking, and it was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. She seemed genuinely interested in me, asking about my job, my family, my interests. We bonded over our love of travel and good food, and by the end of the night, I couldn't believe how lucky I was. Looking back, I see now that Amanda was already working her charm. She knew how to say all the right things, how to make me feel like the most important person in the room. But at the time, I was blinded by the attraction and excitement of meeting someone who seemed so perfect. Our first few dates, the honeymoon phase. After that night, Amanda and I started seeing each other regularly. The first few dates were like something out of a movie. We went to upscale restaurants, trendy bars, and even a rooftop lounge with stunning city views. Every night with Amanda felt like an adventure. I loved showing her the best the city had to offer, and she always seemed so appreciative, complimenting me on my choice of restaurants or my knowledge of the wine list. She was stunning every time we went out, always dressed in the latest fashion, with perfect makeup and hair. It wasn't long before I started associating our dates with the feeling of luxury. It felt like I was living in a different world with her, one where everything was glamorous, exciting, and new. And because I had the means to afford it, I didn't think twice about spending money on her. But it wasn't just the fancy dates that made me fall for her. Amanda had a way of making me feel like I was the most important person in her life. She laughed at all my jokes, even the ones that weren't particularly funny, and she always seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. We would talk for hours, about everything from our favorite movies to our dreams for the future. I was convinced that she was the one. In those early days, I never questioned her sincerity. I was too caught up in the excitement of being with someone who seemed so perfect for me. I felt like I had won the jackpot. Beautiful, charming, and supportive, Amanda was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. But as we got deeper into the relationship, I started to notice little things. Subtle hints that maybe, just maybe, Amanda's feelings for me weren't as genuine as I thought. As our relationship progressed, Amanda's true intentions started to surface, but I was too blinded by my feelings to see them for what they really were. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was, how many red flags I ignored in the hopes that what we had was real. Lavish expectations, the pressure to impress. At first, Amanda's love for the finer things seemed harmless. She would casually mention how much she loved certain designer brands or how she'd always dreamed of visiting exotic locations like Bora Bora or the French Riviera. I didn't mind indulging her at first. I had a good job as a financial analyst and had made smart investments over the years, so spending money wasn't an issue for me. But soon, those casual mentions started to become expectations. "I've always wanted a pair of Louboutins," she said one evening as we strolled through the upscale shopping district. "They're so elegant, don't you think?" I laughed it off at first, thinking she was just making conversation. "Yeah, they're nice," I replied, glancing at the price tag in the window. The shoes were over $1,500. "Maybe someday," I added with a wink. But Amanda didn't laugh. Instead, she looked up at me with those wide, innocent eyes of hers and said, "You know, I think they'd look amazing on me." "Don't you?" There was something in the way she said it, soft, seductive, that made me feel like I couldn't say no. So, like a fool, I walked into the store and bought the shoes for her. She was thrilled, of course, and showered me with affection that night, making me feel like a hero for treating her to something special. I told myself it was worth it. After all, I wanted her to be happy. But as time went on, her requests became more frequent. A designer handbag here, a weekend trip to a luxury resort there. Amanda always had a way of framing her desires as if they were innocent, but looking back, it was clear that she was testing how far she could push me. Each time I bought her something, it seemed like she expected more the next time. Financial manipulation, the turning point. Things really escalated when Amanda started talking about our future together. After about a year of dating, she began dropping hints about moving in together. I had a spacious apartment in one of the nicer parts of the city, and it made sense for us to take that next step. But instead of being excited about building a life together, Amanda was more interested in the material side of things. "You know, your apartment is nice," she said one evening as we lay on the couch, watching TV. "But I was thinking, don't you think it's time for an upgrade? Maybe something with more space, like a penthouse?" I've always dreamed of living in a place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the skyline. I was taken aback. My apartment was already much nicer than most, and I couldn't understand why she felt the need to upgrade. "I like my place," I said slowly, trying to gauge her reaction. "I don't see the need for something bigger right now." She pouted, a look I was starting to become all too familiar with. "It's just, we've been together for a year, and I want our life together to reflect how much we've grown. Don't you want to live somewhere that feels like us? Somewhere luxurious?" Her words made me uncomfortable. I wasn't the type to chase after material things for the sake of it, and I started to feel like Amanda's vision of our future was more about appearances than substance. But at the time, I still wanted to make her happy, so I told her I'd think about it. The next few weeks were filled with more subtle pushes from Amanda. She started sending me links to real estate listings for high-end condos and penthouses, dropping hints about how much she'd love to live in a place like that. It wasn't just the apartment, either. She started talking about upgrading our cars, taking extravagant vacations, and buying expensive furniture for our future home. I felt the pressure building, but I convinced myself that this was normal in a relationship. After all, people make sacrifices for the ones they love, right? But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then came the car incident. The mask starts to slip. Amanda had been driving the same car for years, an older model, but still in great shape. She never complained about it before, but one day, out of the blue, she started talking about how it was time for an upgrade. You know, my car's been making weird noises lately, she said as we were driving back from a shopping trip. I think it's time for something new. Maybe something like a Mercedes or a BMW. I frowned. Didn't you just have your car serviced? The mechanic said everything was fine. Amanda shrugged. Yeah, but it's old. I've had it forever, and I just feel like it's time for something better. Don't you think I'd look great in a luxury car? Her words rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't that I couldn't afford to help her out with a new car, but the way she framed it as if it were a necessity made me uneasy. I don't think you need a new car right now, I said cautiously. Yours is still in good shape, and we've got other things to focus on. She turned to me, her expression hardening. Seriously, Ethan? You can't be serious. I've been driving that thing for years, and I deserve something better. You can afford it, so why are you being so cheap? Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I had spent the past year doing everything I could to make Amanda happy, buying her gifts, taking her on trips, indulging her every whim, and now she was calling me cheap because I didn't want to buy her a luxury car? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm not being cheap, I said, trying to stay calm. I just don't think we should be spending money on unnecessary things. Amanda rolled her eyes, clearly unimpressed. Whatever, Ethan. I thought you actually cared about making me happy, but I guess I was wrong. That was the moment I realized something was seriously wrong. The woman I thought I loved, the woman who had always seemed so sweet and appreciative, was showing a side of herself I hadn't seen before. A side that was entitled, demanding, and manipulative. After the car incident, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Amanda. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that she had been manipulating me for months, pushing me to spend more and more money while giving little in return. But it wasn't until I discovered the truth that everything finally clicked. The discovery, the final nail in the coffin. One night, after a particularly tense argument about her constant demands, Amanda went to bed early. I sat in the living room, my mind racing with doubts. For the first time in our relationship, I started to question whether Amanda was with me for the right reasons. Unable to sleep, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. I know it's wrong. I know I shouldn't have done it. But at that moment, I was desperate for answers. I needed to know if the woman I had fallen in love with was really who she claimed to be. What I found confirmed my worst fears. Amanda had been texting one of her friends about me, and the messages were brutal. In one conversation, she talked about how she was playing the long game and that she was waiting for Ethan to propose so she could finally cash in. I just need to keep him happy until he puts a ring on it, she had written. After that, I'll be set for life. My hands were shaking as I read the messages. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Amanda, who had always acted so loving, so caring, was using me. She didn't love me. She was with me because she saw me as her ticket to a life of luxury. I felt sick to my stomach. Everything I had believed about our relationship was a lie. The expensive gifts, the lavish vacations, the pressure to upgrade our lifestyle, it was all part of her plan to milk me for everything I was worth. I confronted her that same night. The confrontation, the truth comes out. Amanda, we need to talk, I said, my voice barely above a whisper as I held up her phone. I saw your messages. She looked at me, confused at first, but when she saw her phone in my hand, her face went pale. For the first time since I'd met her, Amanda didn't have a quick response. What are you talking about? She stammered, trying to play dumb. I wasn't having it. I saw the texts, Amanda. You've been using me. You don't love me, you just want my money. Her mouth opened and closed as she struggled to come up with a defense. Ethan, no, it's not what you think, she said, her voice shaky. Those were just jokes between friends. I didn't mean any of it. But I wasn't buying it. I had seen enough. You've been manipulating me from the start, I said, my voice rising with anger. All those gifts, the vacations, the apartment, the car, you never cared about me. You were just after what I could give you. Amanda's face crumpled, and she started to cry. "Ethan, please," she sobbed, reaching for me. "I made a mistake. I love you, I really do. I don't care about the money, I care about you." But her tears didn't move me. I had seen the truth in those messages, and no amount of crying was going to change that. "I'm sorry, Amanda," I said, shaking my head. "But it's over." Ending things with Amanda was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but I knew it was the right one. The woman I thought I had fallen in love with was nothing but a facade, and I couldn't let myself be manipulated any longer. The breakup, cutting ties. The day after I confronted Amanda, I told her she needed to move out. It was my apartment, and I didn't want her living there anymore. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing her every day, knowing that she had been lying to me from the start. At first, Amanda refused to leave. She tried to convince me that we could work things out, that she really did love me and that the texts were just a misunderstanding. But I wasn't falling for it. I had seen the truth, and there was no going back. "I can't do this anymore, Amanda," I said firmly. "I deserve someone who loves me for who I am, not for what I can give them." She cried, begged, and even threatened to tell people that I was overreacting and that I had broken up with her for no reason. But I stood my ground. I knew that no matter how much it hurt, I had to cut ties with her completely. After a few days of back and forth, Amanda finally packed her things and left. The day she walked out of my apartment for the last time, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Part of me was heartbroken. I had truly loved her, or at least the version of her that I thought was real. But another part of me was glad it was over. I was free from her manipulation, and I could finally start to rebuild my life. The emotional fallout, dealing with the aftermath. In the weeks following the breakup, I went through a roller coaster of emotions. Some days, I felt numb, like I couldn't believe what had happened. Other days, I was angry at myself for being so blind, for letting Amanda manipulate me for so long. And then there were the days when I missed her, despite everything. It was hard to reconcile the woman I had loved with the woman who had used me. I started spending more time alone, trying to process everything. I went through our text messages, our photos, and even some of the gifts I had bought her, trying to make sense of it all. How had I not seen the signs? How had I let myself be fooled for so long? My friends were supportive, especially Nate. He had never suspected anything was wrong with Amanda either, and he was just as shocked as I was when I told him what had happened. "Man, I'm sorry," he said one night as we sat in my living room, a couple of beers in hand. "I had no idea she was like that." "Neither did I," I muttered, staring at the floor. "I feel like such an idiot." "You're not an idiot," Nate said firmly. "She played you, and she played you well. But you're not the one who should feel bad, she is." I knew he was right, but that didn't make the pain go away. It didn't make the memories hurt any less. I had given so much of myself to Amanda, emotionally, financially, and mentally, and now it felt like I was left with nothing. Rebuilding my life, focusing on myself. As the weeks turned into months, I started to focus on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, taking on more projects and pushing myself to excel in my career. It was a welcome distraction from the pain of the breakup, and it gave me something to pour my energy into. I also started taking better care of myself. I had let myself go a bit during my relationship with Amanda, always focusing on making her happy instead of taking care of my own needs. Now, I began working out regularly, eating healthier, and even picking up some new hobbies. I rediscovered my love for photography and spent weekends exploring the city, capturing moments of beauty that I had overlooked for too long. Slowly but surely, I started to heal. I realized that I had been too focused on trying to make Amanda happy, and in the process, I had lost sight of my own happiness. It was time to start putting myself first again. I also began to reflect on the lessons I had learned from the relationship. I realized that I needed to be more careful in the future, to pay closer attention to the signs that someone might not have the best intentions. I wasn't going to let anyone take advantage of me like that again. As time went on, I began to feel more like myself again. The pain of the breakup started to fade, and I found myself looking forward to the future. I knew I was stronger now, more aware of the red flags I had missed before. And while I was still wary of dating again, I knew that I wouldn't let one bad experience define my entire outlook on love. A new beginning, finding hope again. One day, a few months after the breakup, I met someone new. Her name was Sophie, and she was nothing like Amanda. We met at a mutual friend's wedding, and from the moment we started talking, I could tell that Sophie was genuine. She didn't care about material things or how much money I made, she was interested in me for who I was. We started dating casually, taking things slow. I was still healing from my previous relationship, and I didn't want to rush into anything. But with Sophie, there was no pressure, no manipulation. She made me feel comfortable, like I could be myself without worrying about impressing her with expensive gifts or fancy dinners. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful again. I had been through a lot, but I had come out the other side stronger. And now, I was ready to start a new chapter. Underscore 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 underscore. Conclusion, a lesson learned. Looking back on my relationship with Amanda, I realized that it was a painful but necessary lesson. I learned that not everyone who enters your life has good intentions, and sometimes, the people you trust the most can turn out to be the ones who hurt you the deepest. But I also learned that it's possible to move on, to heal, and to find happiness again. I'm grateful for the friends who stood by me, for the lessons I learned, and for the strength I found in myself. If there's one thing I've taken away from this experience, it's that you should never let someone else define your worth. I'm more than the money I have or the things I can buy, and the right person will love me for who I am, not for what I can give them. Thank you, Reddit, for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but I hope it helps anyone else going through something similar. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and never let anyone take advantage of your kindness.